Hey everybody, this is William from the Godzilla Files coming at you today with a new monster talk. And today I'm going to be talking about the Showa period. This is one of my favorite periods of the whole entire Godzilla franchise. Such great classics can be found in this period that I really wanted to kind of talk about this era of films in general. Now I have done this video in the past, but I really wanted to kind of update my feelings on the Showa period. When I first started this channel, I did a couple of quick videos and I wasn't really happy on how this turned out, so I wanted to kind of go back and give a little bit more appreciation to my favorite period of Godzilla films. So let's jump right into this monster talk. Alright, jumping right into this, like I said, the Showa period is probably my favorite time for Godzilla films. It truly is a magical time in my opinion in the Godzilla series because really they were experimenting, trying different things, and it really comes across that way that they were kind of on the frontier of making kaiju films, not just in the Godzilla series, but also outside of it, like with War of the Gargantuas, Mothra, and Rodan. So, outside of the Godzilla series, they were also experimenting and trying out different techniques, creating different kaiju, and it all came about in this period. With that being said, you have so many classic films that came out of this, like the original Godzilla, the original Mothra, Rodan, and even if you go into the Godzilla series, where you see such classics as Mothra versus Godzilla, King Kong versus Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, and even later on in the Showa period, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So this is just truly some great filmmaking in my opinion. A lot of people, when you look at their top 10s, usually have a lot of Showa in them. And that's because these are classic films that really define the genre itself. Especially in the Godzilla series, during this period of time, the tone is all over the place. And that actually works in its favor. So if you're looking for a superhero-esque kind of kaiju film, you're going to look for maybe Godzilla vs. Megalon, where Godzilla has kind of become that superhero figure. Or maybe you're in the mood for as Godzilla being an anti-hero or a straight villain. There are films that you can actually find in the Godzilla series to fit what you want to watch that night, especially in the Showa period. When we look at the human characters during the Showa period, I don't think you can find a better group of human characters to lead in a kaiju film. Whether it's the original cast from Godzilla or, going further into it, you have lovable losers like people from Godzilla vs. Gigan. So you have such a range of characters and they're all pretty interesting. Yes, they might do the same thing, like there's always a scientist or there's always a reporter, but they always bring something more to the film, and I do believe that the human characters do play a big part in a successful Godzilla film. You can't just have Godzilla fighting for 90 minutes. So the human characters are one piece that is obviously important, but let's talk about some of the kaiju that had first appeared in the Showa period. You have such classics as King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, Gigan. You have other kaiju that joined the Godzilla series like Mothra, Rodan, and King Kong. So you have classic kaijus that you will find throughout every period of the Godzilla series. So, this is where I feel that creatively Toho was at its peak. They created such unique monsters. If you look at King Ghidorah, there's nothing like that, in American cinema. All these different kaiju are so unique and had personalities that they became fan favorites. The other piece that I want to talk about is the music. The music is another big component in films, at least in my opinion, and without a doubt the Showa period has such great stuff that you can probably take any soundtrack and you'll probably enjoy it. Every film has a really strong score. Even the films that use music from previous Godzilla films still sound great. So without a doubt, that might also be another strong point of the Showa period. And not to say that the other periods don't have good music, but the classic themes that you know and love all came from this period of time. Now, while this is my favorite period of time for Godzilla films, that's not to say that I don't recognize that this series has issues. I think the biggest thing to talk about is the fact that as time went on, the budgets got worse and worse and worse. So, you're seeing a lot of stock footage being used. And I think this is probably one of my biggest issues with this period of time is the fact that using stock footage, it can be done correctly or you can use it really wrong. And I think everyone knows in Godzilla vs. Gigan how big of a mess it is. All the stock footage, Mothra appears by mistake. Like there's so many different things that just kind of ruin the experience. And I think, if they had a little bit more money, they could have done some really great things throughout the whole entire series. And because of budgets and things like that, you now see as the series kind of went on, the special effects became less and less complex. And that's a shame because I do think that the special effects in the 60s were pretty amazing for its time. And it's a shame shame because you went from Godzilla fighting other kaiju in large cities to barren wasteland, and that's because of the budget. So, you know, it's unfortunate that this happened. The other thing is that while this series has great films, there are also some really bad ones, and maybe some of the worst in the series. So, you know, while the tone that I was talking about earlier is, you know, all over the place, which I think is good, the quality of films is also all over the place, which is, you know, a really bad thing. You know, All Monsters Attacks and Godzilla Raids Again are some of the worst films in the franchise. So, you know, you can't overlook those, you know, those two really bad films. I mean, Godzilla Raids Again almost stopped the Godzilla series from happening. So again, you know, instead of trying to make a buck, they should have really put some more effort into it. And I think that's kind of the big issue, is that they were kind of always producing a Godzilla film every year at a certain point. And it really does show, like, they were just out of ideas towards the end of the Showa period. The other part of this that I don't particularly like is, you know, Godzilla as a superhero isn't always my favorite. And for a good chunk of the films, that's what he becomes. And it's a shame because I do like him as more of the anti-hero, sort of like what we saw in Ghidorah, the three-headed space monster. You know, I think those are kind of perfect representations of Godzilla, but, you know, the superhero kind of act just does kind of wear thin towards the end of the series, and, you know, that's, in my opinion, one of the weaker aspects of this part. And finally, the Godzilla costume itself is a hit or miss, in my opinion. I think there are some really great ones here, but also they modified and kept costumes around for too long to the point where they were falling apart on film. So I really wish they kind of kept better care of the costumes and the ones that they were going to use over and over again. I understand that's very difficult to do when you're blowing it up half the time, but I feel like there could have been ways to help alleviate that pain. And again, a lot of these issues go back to the budgets being cut over and over again. So this is sort of the running theme of the Showa period, unfortunately. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what are some of your favorite Showa period films and what your thoughts are on the period in general. Also, if you haven't gotten a chance to really dive into the Showa period, I strongly recommend doing it. Like I said before, it's one of my favorite period of films for Godzilla. There's so many classic films, you can't go wrong. Some that I do recommend are Terror of Mechagodzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, King Kong vs. Godzilla, and Invasion of the Astro Monsters. You will definitely enjoy one of those, and I think it gives you a perfect taste of the different tones in this period of time. But yeah, as I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you all later.